Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. This afternoon, we're just going to start a series of webinars every week on a Thursday this time. And I plan on just going through parts of company registers, an hour at a time, taking questions as we go along, and just slowly work our way through it so that we cover all the bases. We did this a couple of years ago, but there's been a lot of updates to the program since then. And so it's a good time to do it again. We've also got a lot of new users. Today we had over 100 people register for the webinar, so that's really awesome numbers. And I will take you through dealing with shares and how we process share transfers, allotments, buybacks, the way that the system handles all those sorts of things. So let's get started. You can all see my screen, I'm sure. So for those of you who are new to company registers or haven't even used it yet, this is our website, companyregisters.co.za or mycompanyregisters.co.za. We'll take you to the same place. On here, if you haven't ever logged into the system before, you can get started by clicking on Get Started, and that would take you to a screen where you can first set up your very first user account and get yourself logged into the system. Okay, if you have used it before, just go to the login button at the top there, and you'll go to a slightly different screen where you're just going to enter your email address and your password, and you will log into the system. Can I just get a quick show of hands? How many of you are actually using company registers at the moment or have used it? Okay, that's quite a lot. Probably half of you who are here today. Oh, that's great. So we're all going to learn something, I'm sure. I'm going to take you through from the beginning. We're going to set up a new company, just use it as a test or a demo company, and then we're going to deal with all the share-related things today. If you have any questions, you can just pop them in the questions box, and I'll answer them as we go through. All right, so to create a new entity, we click on Add New Company. All right, let's just give it a name. What we do is you just confirm that you do want to add a new company and that it will use one of the credits that you have available on your account. Okay, or if you're on the unlimited option, it just goes straight through. Click on Save, and my company is now live. This is my list of companies. To choose a company I want to work in, I can either double click or just click on the little pencil button there, and that will take me into the registers for this company. All right, these are the company details we start off with. Let's fill in some details. Okay, we need a registration number and an incorporation date. Let's say this company was incorporated on the 1st of this month. The year-end date, this is interesting because I obviously see quite a lot of registers that other people do as I'm helping them. The only month where you need to say last day of really is February, because it can be the 28th or the 29th. So normally, if it's a junior end, it's going to be 30 June, okay, or 31 July. You don't have to say end of June, okay, because it's always going to be the 30th of June. Right, we have some fields down here where we can just specify whether there's audits required or whatever the case may be. And we have other company details which we can add as we need to. But we're going to deal with the shares, so let's just save that. The status of this register is going to be under construction right now, okay, because that's what I'm doing to it. And that status comes out, if I look at my companies up here, you see this one says under construction, this one says up to date. Okay, so this is the one I'm dealing with. And so there was the status, and we could fill in the contact person details here if we need to. Right, so it's all about shares, or securities as they refer to in the New Companies Act, which covers debentures as well, preference shares, all types of securities in the company. So we've adopted that term, securities, but shares and securities are the same thing. So we start off with what are the classes of shares in this company. Right, when you get the memo and articles of the company, now I just formed a new company the other day using the standard memo and articles. There is no official name given to that class of shares. You can call it whatever you want. So in the past, we used to call it ordinary shares. A little while ago, I saw a few memo and articles where they were called common shares. So you can call it whatever you like, but your memorandum of incorporation will specify how many shares are authorized. Okay, so this one that I'm looking at says 1,000 shares of a single class of shares. So I'm going to add a new class of shares. I'm going to call these ordinary shares. Okay, if there are any rights or preferences, restrictions, etc., I can make some notes here about that just for our own records. Okay, so we've set up a class of shares. We can obviously have multiple classes of shares. Got some people saying no audio, no sound. No, now it's working again. Okay, that's fine. I think everyone else is okay. If you can hear me, just put up your hands. There's a few hands going up. Oh, everyone's hands, just about everyone's hands are up. Okay, so it must be something on your side, Ina. So hopefully she can get that sorted out. Obviously she can't hear me. So yeah. Right, no other questions there. Right, so we've got an ordinary class of shares that's set up. Okay, also when the memorandum is lodged and the company is formed, then we look at the authorized shares. So the memo specifies how many authorized shares there are. So we will come in here and we will add authorized shares. Okay, so these are the shares that have been created in the company. Okay, we need a date. So that will be the date of the memorandum. Just seeing here, it's I'm actually looking at the CR 15.1a, and I don't actually see a date on it, other than it has to be signed and dated when you get it back. So right, so that's there. The number of shares, 1,000. Now, obviously, new shares, or in new companies are no par value. Okay, that's specified in the Act. But we could have old shares which are still at R1 nominal value. So that's all built into the system here. Okay, and you've got a place for notes again. So we'll save that. So we have 1,000 authorized ordinary shares. It's not issued yet. That's just the authorized capital of the company. That's what the company can issue. Okay, can't issue any more than that, and it doesn't have to issue all of that. It can hold some in reserve. In fact, in most companies, the number that seems to go around is 100. I prefer to issue 120 shares because it's more divisible than 100. If you have two shareholders, well, 100 could be divided by 2 into 50-50, but 120 could be divided into 60-60. Okay, if you've got 3 shareholders, all want to have equal, they've got to have 33 1/3. Well, you can't have 1/3 of a share. But if you issued 120 shares and it's divided into 3, it's just 40 each. So 120 is actually a better number to use if you have an option there. Right, so we've authorized 1,000. Next thing we need to do is we need to allot shares. Okay, so the allotment of shares is where the company issues shares to shareholders. That's called an allotment. And we used to have to fill in some forms and send them off to CRPC, or the old company's registrar, and they kept a record of the shares that were issued. Remember, we also used to submit the CM42s. So they kept a record of who shares were transferred between. And in fact, you would be able to recreate the records by getting the details from SIPC. You can't do that anymore. Okay, none of those allotments or transfers, there's no forms that go to CRPC for that. So it makes the register that much more important because there's no fallback. Can't fall back on CRPC and try and recreate the register. No, you have to create the register up front and make sure it's kept safe. Right? And what better way to keep it safe than to put it on company registers? Okay, it's better than having it in a red book. We take backups. Every day there's backups stored in multiple places. And yeah, you're not going to lose it. You're not going to have it stolen either. All right. So if we want to do an allotment, okay, we first on the system, ideally, we need to create who the security holders are going to be. We can do it on the fly as we do it, but let's rather go to the security holders and let's add a new security holder. Okay, when I do that, first box I have is a copy from search. If I click on this little button, it will actually look through all my registers and see which people we've got and their details, because we might be able to reuse those details. Just speeds up the data entry process. Okay, so this looked through all my registers and it found registers for Carl and for Carol. And these particular shares we're going to be issuing to Carl. So we have details for Carl as a director, not as a security holder, as a director, but that's fine. If I just tick on this little tick, the details that I've got for him will come through into here as much as we have. Okay, if I look under the addresses, there we got the addresses, phone numbers are there too. Right, so that's quick data entry if you've got the person in there. If you don't, then you just go in and type these details. Okay, a couple of extra optional fields there, like income tax number. It's not required, but it's often handy. Okay, so we'll save that guy, and then we'll go and we'll allot the shares to him. Okay, so we go to allotments. We click on the button that says add new allotment. Okay, you'll notice here, just before I do that, we've got this drop down. Okay, if there were multiple classes of shares, this is where we would select that and we would see the allotments just for that class of shares. Okay, so let's just add a new allotment. We give it a date. Right now, we may or may not have actually done all the paperwork for this allotment yet. But the system, if we enter the data first, the system will produce the paperwork for us. Okay, so that's quite handy. So let's put the date of the allotment as being today. Okay, because we got the company back. It takes a few days to get the company back from SIP-C. And now we've organized to do things and we're going to do the allotment today. Okay, so it's ordinary shares. Who are we allotting them to? We'll click on the little question mark and it will just come up with a list of the security holders that are in here already. Okay, we could have added a new one here if we wanted to, but I just did it first so we could see the flow a bit better. Click on the little tick there and don't fill in the certificate. Okay, it says here, leave blank if you wish the system to automatically create the certificate and put in a number. So just leave that blank. Okay, then down here, when shares are allotted, they can be done for cash or otherwise than cash. So if someone's otherwise than cash would be if they were introducing assets into the company. Let's keep this one simple. So we'll just do 120 shares. And we'll just say it's 120 Rand and nothing is other than cash. And we'll click save. Okay. So it tells us a new certificate was added, number 1. Right, so the system, because we left that certificate number blank, automatically brought in the transaction and issued a certificate. Now we're going to see more clearly later on, but in our system, we deal with the shares that are in the share account, and then we have certificates that match what's in the share account. Okay, there is a distinction between them. And it's going to be very important to understand that. Right, so we've done an allotment, 120 shares, and we haven't done any paperwork for it yet. So I want to do the paperwork. I want the system to generate the paperwork for me. And we have a little thing called tasks in the system. And here at the end of this row, got a little button. And if we hover over it, it says create task. Tasks that are required for an allotment of shares. Now there isn't much. There's essentially a director's resolution. Okay, so it tells me for this allotment, we need a director's resolution, and this little button here will do that form for me. So I click on that, and it's going to come up with some minutes. Okay, now the data got sucked into these minutes from what we entered as the allotment. It also knows what the resolution numbers are. It keeps a running total of those. And so it numbered this resolution as number 1. Okay, if it happened to be number 2, you could change it to number 2 if you need to. Okay, you can edit this as you need to. It just tries to help you generate the paperwork more easily. If you don't like the wording in this minute, change it. Okay, if you do a lot of new companies and you need to do a lot of these minutes, you can change in the master record of these minutes as well. But I won't go there right now. Okay, so this created this resolution for us, and these details pulled through from the allotments that we entered. And we can now print this. Okay, so we would click on the little print button there. Okay, that's going to go to my, I can send it to my printer. Sorry. And physically print it out, get it signed, and then come back and scan it into here. Okay. I'm just going to print this to Adobe. Just give it a name here. Okay, so I've produced the minute. So I click on OK, and I'll be back at my tasks. So right, what's the status of that right now? I'm waiting for signature. Okay, so this will help me keep track of things. Okay, if I go back to all my company registers, this whole list here, then I can look at my tasks here and look at tasks, and it will list for all the companies what we do, what's up. Okay, so here on demo company, I'm doing an allotment, and it's telling me this is still outstanding. Okay, if I double click on it, do I go there? No, it doesn't go there. All right, but I can go back to demo company, open up the register, click on tasks here, and it will show me the detailed tasks for this company. Okay, so that's how I found that again. So I've done that, those minutes. Let's just get them here. I think they've come up on another screen. Let's just pull it across. Here we go. Okay, so there were the minutes that I printed out. Now I need to get them signed. All right, so I can print them out and then get someone to sign them. There is a way you can sign it using Adobe Acrobat even, or they're different. Obviously, you can get it physically signed and then scan it back in again. That's going to be the way that most people do it. Okay, when I've got that signed, I want to keep that in my minute book. Okay, now our electronic minute book in company registers is over here. It's under Res, Mins, Docs, Resolutions, Minutes, and Documents. And if I go there, I will have a list of all these things. So it's a brand new company, so there's nothing there. So let's put in that resolution. So we'll go and add new minutes there. The date of it was today. What is it? It's a resolution, number 1, and it was allotment. allotment of shares. And you can put any details you want. I would put here the person's name and even how many shares. It's just useful information. Okay, then we add the upload file. Click on there. And let's go find that file. All right, that's been uploaded. Save it. There it is, and it's got a magnifying glass. If I click on the magnifying glass, it's going to download. That is what is uploaded and saved in the cloud. Okay, pretty useful. It's signed now. Okay, pretend that it's signed. Go back to my tasks. Say, right, this one now is completed, and today's date. And in fact, because that's completed and there are no more steps, the whole thing is completed as of today's date. I'm good with that. Right, so we've done our allotment. Let's look. Oh, let's have a look. There's the allotment. Okay. When we did the allotment, also the share certificate was issued. Go to certificates. You'll see there's the share certificate. To Carl, there's the date, certificate number. Okay, if I want to print that certificate, there's a little print icon. Print it out. There's the certificate. Okay, let's say, oh, okay, it needs some signatures. Who's going to sign it? Oh, let's change that. We've got some options here. If we go to that share certificate and we edit it, then we can say, right, signatory 1, we can pick any of these. Let's go with director and director. Okay, if I already had the directors loaded up on the system, which I really should have before doing the share transfers, because the directors were appointed when the company was formed, then those directors' names actually would be options to put in here as well. Okay, if I save that, print that share certificate again, you'll see now it says director, director. Remember, the Companies Act says a share certificate must be signed by 2 people who are authorized by the board. Okay, so there needs to be a board authorization for that. Right. This share certificate should be printed maybe even on cardboard or something. It's really important because that is evidence of ownership. And as a physical printed out document, it's critical. You're not allowed to save the share certificate electronically as evidence of ownership. Like that electronic copy is not evidence of ownership. The Act actually specifically says that. It doesn't mean you can't save it electronically. And in fact, we have the option here on that share to go and upload a signed certificate so that you've just got a record of it. But that is not sufficient evidence of ownership. Only the physical share certificate and the entries in the register. Those are the things that prove ownership. Very, very, very important. All right. What else we can do is look at the SEC holders account. Click on SEC holder here and we'll see there's their shares. Now this shows 2 columns. One is the number of registered securities. So that's the shares that are in this person's share account. And then this column is the number of certificated securities. In other words, those shares that are reflected and issued on certificates. Okay, and they need to be the same. And that's why it's got this tick here. If they're not the same, that will have a cross next to it. And something's wrong, we need to fix that. We'll look at that now under share transfers. Okay, are there any questions on the allotment of shares? Just want to remind you that there's no forms that go to CIPC for it. They don't know or have any record of the issue of shares. That's only reflected in the share register, making that share register very, very important. Okay. Obviously, it's really simple. So, or maybe I just explained very well. I don't know. Right. So that was the issue, the allotment of shares. Okay. If we're going to do now a transfer of shares, so let's say Carl's going to transfer a third of his shares to Carol. Then we're going to look at the section on transfers. Okay, we can add in a new transfer. Okay, so it's existing issued shares that are being transferred between shareholders. Okay, it's important. It's not another allotment. It's not a buyback and another allotment. It's between shareholders. Okay, so let's give it a date. Let's go with today. And we're going to do 40 shares going from transfer from, okay, from the existing shareholder, Carl, to, and when I select that, oh, Carol's not in there. Okay, let's add her in. So we can go add new security holder at this point. Okay, I can type it all in from scratch, or I can go and search. Look, oh, I've actually got her in the system already as a shareholder in this company. So let's click on the tick, and all her details will come through and save. Okay, now I can select her from this list. Who am I transferring shares to? And I can just click on this little tick here, and her details will come through here. Okay, leave this blank. Okay, let the system deal with the shares or the share transfer as best it can, and we'll make some amendments just now. Okay, so we're transferring 40 shares from Carl to Carol, and the consideration. Okay, there has to be a consideration. Okay, this is a new company, so it's only going to be 40 Rand. Okay, and there'll be this security transfer tax is calculated automatically. Remember, this still applies. You buy those revenue stamps and you stick them on a document, and they get cancelled. You sign them and cancel them. Unless it's exempt, in which case you click exempt, and then there'll be no calculation. Right? So we'll save that. So that transfer is now happened in the system. Now, I made my screen a little smaller than normal. And I can't see everything that's in this box here, so I need to just drag this across. Right, because on here, we've got a whole lot of buttons. Okay, so we're dealing with a transfer, so that would be changes to the record. That is a button which will allow me to just copy one transfer to a new transfer, just to speed up data entry, that's all. There I can delete it. And I've got this button which will print a transfer form. This button would view a stored or uploaded transfer form that we've saved here. And this button will go and create a new certificate for this transfer. So let's just take it one step at a time. Let's go to this form here. Okay, so when a transfer happens, there has to be evidence of the transfer. We used to use a CM42 form, which used to be submitted to CRPC. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so we created our own form. I click on that button, and it will produce a form for us. Essentially, it's the same information that was on the old CM42, and it's all the information that we need. Because we entered the transaction already, all this information is going to pull through. Okay, you notice the certificate numbers are blank. Now we can print this form out and we can fill that in manually, right, and get it all signed up. Or if we know what those details are, we can go back to our transaction and we can enter those details. Okay, or we can let the system take care of these things for us. So let's process the whole transaction on the system and then come back and do the form afterwards. All right. The best way for us to deal with it is we've posted the transfer. Let's go to the SEC holders accounts. And you'll notice that in this column, this is the number of registered securities. This is their share account and how many shares they have in their share account. But remember I said to you earlier about the certificates need to reflect what is in the share account. So we still have one certificate for 120 shares reflected in Carl's name. We're going to need to cancel that certificate. The easy way to do it is to move across to the right here, and we go to this little button which it highlights and says View Account and Certificates for this person, for Carl. So let's go there. And you'll see, here's his securities account at the top. Started off with 120, 40 were transferred out, and here's his certificates at the bottom. If I run right down, you'll see at the bottom it says, oh, we need to have a minus 40 here. Oh, okay. This works for the other person who's receiving the shares. Okay, it doesn't work here until we make some changes. So what we have to do is we have to get back that certificate that reflects 120 shares. Physically get it back in my hand. All right? Then go into here, edit it, and cancel the certificate. The way I cancel it is by filling in the date cancelled. Okay? And save. Right. Physically get that certificate in your hands, put a lines through it, and you write cancelled and a date. That certificate is no longer valid. We need to now issue a new certificate, okay, because Carl's still got 80 shares. Now, because we cancelled this, it's showing no certificated securities for Carl. In the bottom part, it says, right, if I click on this button, it's going to create a new certificate. So let's do that. Click on there. New certificate number 2 is created, dated, and now the certificate balance equals the share account balance. Last thing to do is to just go into this record and update the details of the old and new certificate. Okay, so the new certificate, which has come through for this transfer, is certificate number 2, and the old certificate was number 1. Okay, those numbers could differ depending on lots of factors. So you need to just be aware of that and make that change yourself. Okay, if I go back to that SEC holder, now we see Carl has 80 in his account, 80 are certificated, and there's a tick. Right. Just some questions. Let's have a look here. Carl says there is a de minimis exemption for securities transfer tax, as far as I'm aware. Is this correct? I actually don't know if there is a minimum amount. Certainly, like on that share transfer we did, and it's 10 cents, it hardly seems material. But I think there may actually be legislation. Maybe I'll look into this and I'll feed it back to you in an email. That the transfer may not even be valid if it isn't stamped. It could. I know it used to be like that. I'm not sure whether that's changed. If anyone's can point me in the right direction to that answer, that would be awesome. And then we'll feed it back to everybody. All right. Suzette says, if the owner of the share does not have the original certificate that must be cancelled, what is the procedure? Aha. Right. Let's have a look. I have a book here that runs through. Actually, I don't need to look at the book. We have the answer on the system. Okay, so what happens if you can't find that original certificate? Click on help over here, And if we'll go to our help system for company registers, and if you go down the side here, we have a section under certificates and lost share certificates. Right, so if there's a lost share certificate, it's really important. You don't want to issue a duplicate and then be in trouble. So you have to have a board resolution to approve the issue of a duplicate share certificate. You have to have an indemnity form that the shareholder signs. And then you can issue a new certificate and update the register. Now we have some examples here. There's the example of a board resolution. And there's an example of a lost certificate indemnity. Right, so it's all there under the help system. Isn't that cool? Forgot that that was even there. Right. Okay, so we've dealt with Carl's transfer. So he had shares leaving him, cancel the certificate, issue a new certificate. Right, what about Carol? This doesn't agree. Let's go into her account. So we view the account and certificates. We see she's now got 40 shares. No certificates, so let's create them. Click on the button, certificate number 3 has been created. Her shares agree. Check this record. That actually should be certificate number 3, right? The new one. And we should be good. Go back to the sec holder. They've all got ticks. Go to the certificates and you'll see the crosses and ticks here. Crosses, it's not active anymore, it's been cancelled. And the total is only of the active certificates, and that adds up to 120, which is what we needed. Right, I said let's process all the transactions and then go back and create that transfer form. So we go back to transfers, click on the little button that's for the form, print transfer form. There's our form, there's the details of the old certificate, there's the details of the new one for the new shareholder. We print out this form, get it signed. We keep it on file in a physical file, but also we upload this. So we, let me just print it quickly to, I'll just print it to PDF. Okay, it's on the PDF. We would get it signed up by everybody. And then I can go into this record and I can upload the signed form. Okay, so there was my transfer form there. That's been uploaded and saved. See now it has a little magnifying glass next to it. That's stored up there in the cloud. Okay, so right with that transaction, we have a copy of the signed form stored with it. And if we go over to resolutions, minutes, and documents, and we look under other uploaded documents, then you'll also find it in that list there. Right. Okay. Another Carl has a question here. It says, all right. He says, do you have to cancel and issue a new certificate for the transferor? Can you not just reissue the original certificate showing the new quantities with history endorsed on it. No, I don't think so, because that batch of shares is certificated, and the share certificates also are required to be sequentially numbered. So I think that this is the best way to do it. You have to have a document of transfer that's signed, and you need to surrender that original certificate. So I think that has to be cancelled and a new certificate has to be issued. I don't think you should reuse certificate numbers. Yeah. Right. Carl also says, by the way, I checked the Securities Transfer Tax Act, and the de minimis amount is 100 Rand. In other words, if the amount payable is less than 100, then it's exempt. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. I'll still put that in an email to everybody so that we know, and I'll actually add that into the help system as well. Thank you very much for that information. All right, are we all happy with the transfers? So we've done with allotments and we've done the transfers. Okay, any questions, any other questions on those two? Okay, nothing coming through. All right, if you do have questions, you can still fire away. Okay, the next thing to deal with is the buyback of shares. Okay, what happens in a buyback? Well, a company purchases its own shares from existing shareholders. If we want to do that, it's basically a negative allotment. Okay, it's just let's deal with these questions. Johan says, I'd like to find out if you're able to import a list of clients into this register and then update from there and upload documents as you go along. Yes, Johan, we can help you with that. If you have a database already, we've done an import directly from the ACFIN product. So there we have an import facility where we can suck all that data into company registers. From Secware, we struggled a little bit with that, but we get some of the data in, just because the databases are so different. And then the other option, of course, is if you've just got an Excel list with data in it, we can do that, and we do that for free. We don't charge you for that. So certainly we can get as much data as we can into here so you don't have to retype everything. Aurelia has given me some comments that I can put into a little email to you guys about the STT. That'll be helpful. Thank you for that. All right, so I was talking about share buybacks. So what are share buybacks? That's where the company repurchases shares from its shareholders. And essentially, it's like a negative allotment. Okay, the allotment being the company issues shares to shareholders. The buyback is it buying those shares back from the shareholders. So that's dealt with under allotments. So that obviously has to be authorized by the board, etc. But the way that we process it on this system is we just go to add new allotment. We will choose the date and we will click on buyback. All right, buyback ordinary shares from who? Tick which shareholder they're coming from. Okay, if it's like 10% from each shareholder, you will have to do it in multiple entries. Okay, but let's just say we're going to buy back 20 shares from Carl. Leave this blank, and the number of shares 20, and might be paying him back 2,000 Rand, say. Save that. Now there'll be 100 shares in issue. Okay, we obviously have to go to the security holder's account now and adjust the shares, the certificates. Okay, so we go to the sec holder, we'll see which one's out. There's the cross. Go to their account. Okay, remember we have to look at the share certificates that's been issued. Go in and cancel it. Okay, when that's been cancelled, we now need to issue a new certificate for the remaining shares. Okay, remember this is so easy, isn't it? The system helps you. Create the certificate for 60. It's number 4. It's done. So it was Number 2 got cancelled. Number 4 got issued. Let's just go into this record. And number 4 was issued. Number 2 was cancelled. Save it. Go back to the security holder. All ticks, 100%. Okay, if you want to print a shareholder's account, you can go print a list there. Or if you go into their account, you can print the account here. Okay, and that will give the history of their transfers on their transactions on their account. That entire account is also printed if you choose under here, print all registers. That's the option that prints all the registers, all the share accounts, all the directors' appointments, etc., 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 the complete register, all in one hit. Okay, if you need to give a list of shareholders to the bank, you can go into the security holders, and there's a print list there. Okay, you can choose what details you have on that list. Let's tick these and put a few extra details on. Print the list. There we go. And that's who's got what shares now, currently. Okay, Aurelia's got a whole lot of information for me. This is all very useful stuff. I think very technical as well, but there are certain things that have to happen if the buybacks are more than a certain percentage. The Act obviously deals with all those sorts of things. And, you know, a buyback is not something that you just do off the top of your head. There's going to be legal documents that are in place. Lawyers are going to be involved. So all the paperwork that precedes actually entering it on the company register system is going to be quite complicated, and it needs to be looked at very carefully. I mean, it takes experts to do it. There are solvency and liquidity tests that have to be performed and things like that. So all that has to be done by the experts. Okay, as the company register, as a person updating the register, that's a very simple process I've just shown you. It's effectively a negative allotment. But there's a lot that's going to happen behind the scenes before you can actually process those transactions. Okay, let's have a look here. We've got another question. If I had a client shared access, what would they be able to see in regards to the allotments? They would be able to see everything. Okay, Emma, we just so everyone knows, we have a system in here. If I go to, let's go back up to my companies and select this company. On this screen, down right at the bottom, we have a thing called share access. And what you can do is you can share access with your client, or anyone for that matter, by putting in their email address. So if I want to share this access with myself, right? And I can then notify that person. When I click save, that person's email, they're going to get a notification. I'll do it so we can see exactly what it looks like. This is kind of outside of the scope of dealing with the shares, but let's just go through it anyway. So they now got an email. Now they would be able to log in. Okay, so I'll just log out here. Okay, I was logged in as Carol here. I'm going to come along and log in now as myself. Okay, so I logged in as myself. Now my client, Carol, just shared a register with me. And if I go to my entities and I click on my shared access, that company comes up in this list of shared access. Now she could only share it with me in view only mode. Okay, if you're on the unlimited package, you can share this register with your client in full access mode as well, which means they can do everything on these registers that you would be able to do. But if you only want, or you can share it, you can select to share it in view only or full access. Under these circumstances, Carol could only share it with me as view only. So I'll click on here and I'll go into the register, and all the blue means I can't change it. right? I'll go view this company. See, it's all in blue. I can't make changes to it. If I try and make changes, it doesn't work. So it's view only. If I go to the allotments, okay, they're the allotments that we did earlier because they're all in this register. Okay, but they can't change them. They can go into it and see everything, but they can't make changes. There's no save button even. They can go to the certificates and they could print the certificates. Okay, but they can't make changes. Can print anything, but can't make changes. And the one other thing they can do is under the minutes and resolutions is they can create and upload new documents. So this way you can share the registers with your client and they can say upload all the history of the minutes from the minute books. Let them do that work. You don't need to do it. They can do it. Bernard asks, does the system generate the necessary docs for the shareback? No, it doesn't. I can look into adding that, but I think because of the nature of share buybacks, there's probably going to be agreements in place and it's going to be quite sophisticated. I will talk to Aurelia about it because she says she does quite a few of these per year and see if it would be useful to add some documentation in there, and if it will be useful, we will add it for sure. If there are no par value shares, why is there a monetary value to the buyback? The reason for that is because there will be a monetary value. That person who's surrendering their shares is going to be paid back some money. Just like when the shares were first issued by the company, there is money that's changing hand. Even though they know par value, all that no par value means is that each share does not have a fixed value attached to it. It can be issued at any value per share. It doesn't have a specified fixed value. That's what no par value means. There's still money changes hands when the shares are allotted or when they're bought back or when they're transferred for that matter. All right. Another question, is a signed and scanned share certificate proof of ownership or should it be the original? George, it must be the original. Okay, the Act actually specifies. I'd like to see the reference in the Act, but again, I can just feed back to you on that one because that share certificate is absolutely essential. And I'll quote the section of the Act that tells you that a scanned electronic version is not evidence of ownership. It has to be the original. Bernard has offered to send me some templates. That would be awesome. Please do. Please do. Okay. Any other questions? I think we've dealt with everything shares related. If there's anyone thinks I've left something out, please let me know. And we will follow this up with an email. I hope that you found it useful. Okay, Calvin says, what email address should I use? Calvin, just use support@companyregisters.co.za. Oh, there we go, support, system support. Okay, there's our phone number, there's our email address. Okay, and that those two phone numbers and email address cover support for all company registers related things. And we are more than willing to help you in any way that we can. I don't see any further questions, and I did say we'll just make it an hour, so I think we've made it an hour. Thank you all for attending. I hope to see you all again next week.